Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Tonight is going to be our final session in our flood risk reduction series. We're going to be covering flood insurance, going over why it's important, lowering premiums, and how our city participation in the CRS program helps to keep insurance rates down. Our presenter tonight is going to be Brian Christopherson, a certified floodplain manager and licensed insurance agent. We also have our floodplain managers with the City of Davenport. We have Laura Berkeley, a development and planning administrator with the Development and Neighborhood Services. And we have Megan Overton, neighborhood development coordinator in Community and Economic Development. Megan will be presenting with Brian tonight as well. The session will be recorded so that it can be viewed later on our website. We ask you to use the chat function if you have any questions throughout the presentation. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Brian and let him get started.
Thank you very much. We're going to talk about flood insurance outreach today. I want to talk about lowering flood insurance premiums for you folks in Davenport, Iowa. I'm going to show you some steps on how you can do it. And the city's doing a phenomenal job with their CRS rating as well to help you guys out with that 15% discount being involved in the CRS rating program. My name is Brian Christopherson. I am a certified floodplain manager and licensed insurance agent with Risk Reduction Plus Group. A little bit about us. We've been helping people in flood for over 20 years. All of our staff are CFMs, certified floodplain manager. We do outreach in all 50 states, and we have an 83% average savings track record. So we save people a lot of money on flood insurance. If you do have an elevation certificate, we would love to do a complimentary review for you. All you have to do is send your elevation certificate into Davenport at yourfloodrisk.com and get your free report back in probably a day or so. Some flood risk stats. Flooding is probably the #1 disaster in the country. It impacts all 50 states. Nfip claim 20% of Nfip claims are in low to mid risk areas, and actually that number is a little bit higher, probably up to 40% after 2019. 94% of Americans do not have flood insurance, and homeowners insurance does not cover flood. Some definitions in the industry: base flood elevation, that's BFE, that's the predicted height that a flood is anticipated to rise during storms. Community rating system, CRS, Davenport is a 7, and that saves you folks 15% on your flood insurance premiums every year. Freeboard is elevating a building's lowest floor above and beyond the base flood elevation. It's a built-in safety factor resulting in lower flood insurance premiums as well as a safe structure during a flood. So flood zones that we have around our area, we have A zones that consist of AE and A1 through 30 zones. Those have established base flood elevations and low impact from waves. So why all the flood insurance premium hikes? Why is the NFIP raising my flood insurance? We're looking at premium generated. It's running like a business. And Katrina generated $1.9 billion in premium and paid out almost $20 billion in premium. So they lost money, and they've been losing money since that 2005 storm. Sandy and Harvey, the same scenario. Some policy changes that were enacted in Congress. We had the 2012 Bigger Waters Reform Act, and basically what that said was that if you live in a flood zone, you need to pay your actuarial rate or your fair share, depending on your risk. Okay, they were raising flood insurance premiums 18 to 25% per year, and it was becoming unaffordable. It was going to cause a housing market crisis. And 2014, the Homeowners Flood Insurance Affordability Act came along and slowed the rate of increase down, right? The Grim Waters Act. And that slowed the rate down considerably to make flood insurance more affordable. And as you can see now, 2021, we're starting to see even subsidized rates go up to creep up to the $2,000 range. Again, policy changes: 18 to 25% increase on flood insurance and 9% increase for everyone else. what they're talking about here is elevation certificates. Elevation certificates are key to find out what your actuarial risk is and determining what your flood insurance premium should be. Okay. Some policy changes. April 1st, 2015, they enacted a $25 surcharge on primary residents. Also enacted a $250 surcharge on non-primary residents. So on that second home, you will not receive a subsidy, and you will get tacked on a $250 surcharge for that non-primary residents. Subsidized rates are going away, and what we want to do is make sure folks are mitigated and safe from flood and receiving that low flood insurance premium. Severe repetitive loss. Today, the new flood insurance manual came out, and it looks like that if you're a severe repetitive loss home, they went up another 5% on just the SRL designation. So it looks like it's going to be a 15% increase on that designation by itself. So again, elevation certificates are key. Get one, know what your actuarial risk is, and find out how you can help yourself. April 1st, 2020, Nfip premium increases. The primary pre-firm was 7.5%. The non-primary SRL substantially improved, and non-residential structures are 23 to 25%. The substantially improved means that if you improve your structure more than 50% of its value, it needs to be brought into current code. And then obviously non-residential structures don't receive a subsidy. So post firm rated with elevation certificate, 5%, meaning that they're built to code and they have an elevation certificate, they only received a 5% increase. Again, I can't stress this enough, elevation certificates are key. Talk to your local professional land surveyor, make sure they're licensed in the state that you live in Davenport, Iowa, obviously. There's plenty, that do the elevation certificate, and I reach out and give one a call, get one scheduled, get an elevation certificate scheduled. Repetitive loss and severe repetitive loss. Repetitive loss properties have 2 or more claims of more than $1,000 over a 10-year period. Severe repetitive loss properties are 4 or more claims of more than $5,000 or 2 or more claims where the total exceeds the current value of the property. Now that's a 10-year window, okay? So if you have 2 floods within a 10-year window and they exceed that 50% value, then we're going to be looking at some mitigation steps and obviously a higher flood insurance premium. Our flood risk evaluator, when we evaluate elevation certificates, we've actually had a $11 million total premium reduction potential. That means out of all the 5,800 plus cases that we reviewed, we're able to save potentially $11 million in premium. That's a lot of money. 39.2% of cases paid lower premiums by correcting paperwork or mitigation. And by correcting paperwork, I mean, we look at the elevation certificate. We look for a potential mistake. It could be a building diagram mistake. It could be a flood vent mistake. We look for a flood declaration page mistake. Errors happen. People make mistakes, and they can be corrected. Mitigation would be up to a 1 to 3 year return on investment. It could be elevating your mechanicals. It could be installing flood vents. It could be filling crawl space with X amount of fill, or even filling in the basement. A number of things that mitigation involves there. Again, flood risk evaluator, we look for incorrect residency status. Sometimes you're getting charged that non-primary residence surcharge, and it's your primary home, so you shouldn't be charged that. Pre-firm structure is not rated. Undocumented flood vents, incorrect building diagram number, and unaware of eligibility for a LOMA. A LOMA is a letter of map amendment, and I would never say drop your flood insurance, but it does. If you do qualify for a LOMA, it'll also qualify you for a preferred risk policy rate, and those are anywhere from $400 to $500 per year. This is the elevation certificate here. This is what we what we evaluate, and this is what you can get for your property. And what this does, it establishes it lets you know where your house sits in the flood zone as far as elevation. We're going to look at the top of the bottom floor or top of the bottom slab. We're going to look at top of the next higher floor, and we're going to look for flood openings as well. When we do evaluate your elevation certificate, again, we look for policy mistakes, flood zones, and requirements. It could be mitigation requirements. You get a free flood insurance quote from Risk Reduction Plus Group and products that can lower your premium as well. And again, this can include elevating your mechanicals, filling in your basement or crawl space, and maybe bringing a couple inches of fill on the outside of your property. Some solutions to this high flood insurance premium that we're experiencing: mitigate the compliance, right? Put that fill in, put the vents in, use flood resistant material when you do your building, up to the base flood elevation. Make sure you're rated correctly, and then maybe if all that is not feasible, look to the private flood insurance market. We're going to talk about private flood insurance here in a minute, but again, we're going to talk about reducing flood risk as well, because the only way you're going to lower your flood insurance premium is by lowering your flood risk. We look at homes, and we talked about wet floodproofing earlier, and I want to kind of go into that a little bit. So on the left-hand picture, what you see here is a compliant diagram according to FEMA. FEMA does not regulate freeboard yet. Okay, so what they look for is that make sure that that living level or that contents level is at the base flood elevation, which you can see here. The top of the next higher floor is at base flood elevation. You have some light buoyancy force and some lateral force. When floodwaters rise up on this structure, it's going to put lateral force on the foundation, and that could actually cause damage such as shear, cracking, or collapse. Buoyancy force causes the uplift, right? That's from the water table raising up. But installing flood openings on this structure would allow that water and debris pass through, therefore lowering the flood risk, which means you're going to have a lower chance of receiving damage to the foundation during the flood, and you'll receive that lower premium, right? Again, that means you're elevating the mechanicals above and beyond the base flood elevation. You're installing flood vents, pressure treated material. And this lower area is non-living space. Now, this is where a lot of our problem lies, right here. Okay, the subgrade space, the basements, the subgrade crawl space. These have to contend with increased buoyancy force due to the water table, greater hydrostatic pressure pushing against that foundation wall, and saturated soil pressures expanding and pushing against the foundation wall, causing cracks, collapse, or wall failure. So substantially improved or substantially damaged homes would need to be brought into code, and that means you're going to fill the basement in up to the lowest adjacent grade to equalize the pressure down here. Okay, elevate as necessary, and then flow through flood vents to relieve the pressure on that wall. Why are they important? This is what you don't want to see during a flood. Okay, when you have lateral force pushed against the structure, this is where you see the foundation damage start to occur, the cracking foundation, shear, etc. And a lot of times too, if you have the air vents installed, those tend to get plugged with debris, and so debris is a fact of flood, as we all know, and so that could prohibit the water from flowing through to equalize the pressure on the foundation wall. This is the goal during a flood. We want to make sure that we can equalize the pressure on all sides of the wall to prevent collapse and keep that structure safe during the flood. We also want to make sure we're elevated to at least freeboard to make sure that we're not going to get contents damage, right? Because structure damage is probably the most damaging, most costly, but there's contents damage in there as well. We want to avoid that as well. So why do you lower your premium by wet floodproofing your structure, your residential structure? Because you avoid damage like this. Okay, this is costly. And this is what we're doing when we wet floodproof a structure. We're preventing damage like this. This is an automatic opening that provides or protects your foundation by allowing bidirectional water flow, which equalizes hydrostatic pressure. And Technical Bulletin 1, FEMA Technical Bulletin 1 is a document that talks about wet floodproofing for residential structures. And this says that the flood vent, the bottom of the flood vent, can be no more than 12 inches from the adjacent grade. Okay, closer to the ground the better. The whole goal is to get the water to flow through the structure in a area that's designed for parking, access, or storage. Okay, low value storage. We don't want to store expensive cars or expensive items into your storage area that's below the base flood elevation. It's just not feasible. The whole goal is to limit the damages. This is a case study that was in Peoria, Illinois, and it's like this everywhere. There's no difference in structures. So this structure was elevated, right? This is right now it's a diagram 1. It's actually technically a walkout basement, okay? But looking at the elevation certificate, the base flood elevation is 460 feet. The NFIP rates the top of the bottom floor, which is the top of the slab, at 450.93. Okay, that's a -9 rating. Actuarial rates would show the premium to be about $9,000, and this $9,000 is a $177,000 house. Okay, that's not even a full 250 that you're able to insure for. The homeowner decided that he was going to mitigate his, provide mitigation for his home, his structure. And what he did was he installed flood vents, because that was all that was missing was the flood vents, the flood openings. And so by allowing the water and debris flow through this structure, this is now a non-conforming space. And non-conforming spaces are used for parking, access, low value storage. So the NFIP rates the top of the next higher floor. Top of the next higher floor is 460.69. You can round that number up to a +1. And that's exactly what they did. So they took their old premium of $2,038 and knocked it down to $511. 75% reduction on this flood insurance, just from installing flood openings. The retrofit cost was $1,200 installed. Again, return on investment was immediate, and it's annual. So he receives this annual discount every single year. So instead of paying couple grand flood insurance, he's paying $511. So it's a pretty big deal, and that can go over many different scenarios in the Quad Cities where folks have saved that money. So I'm going to talk about private versus NFIP, and I want to talk about some advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, the NFIP, you need an elevation certificate, and in order to save money on your flood insurance through the NFIP, you have to be, pretty much your flood risk has to be low. Okay, you have to have the proper openings, proper amount of openings. You have to make sure that your lower area, if it's flood resistant material being used. And as far as coverages, NFIP does cover decks that are attached to the home, but as far as like it's very limited in your basement. So they're not gonna, if your basement floods, the NFIP is not gonna make your basement, they're not gonna redo it. They'll pay to maybe remove the sheetrock or whatever, but they're not gonna pay to redo your basement. Private, however, does provide coverage for personal property and basements, and there's a contents coverage for NFIP as well. I'm not sure why it's not checked, but NFIP takes 30 days to become effective. Private is 10. They do cover loss of use, which means that if you're out of your home, they'll cover a hotel up to a certain amount of money. And then, but there's a drawback, right? So the drawback is the NFIP will not cancel you, okay? Private flood insurance can cancel you, okay? And I will say not cancel, because cancel sounds like drop. Nobody can drop you once you pay for your premium. Private flood insurance can say, we're not going to renew you. They have to give you 45 days notice and then go from there. But the NFIP, again, will not refuse to renew you. And, you know, you're pretty much the premium based on the elevation certificate in this case. Private flood insurance, will my mortgage company accept it? Yes, unless you're a first-time home buyer or it's a VA loan. So there's other things. Can they pay my claim? Yes, they can pay your claim, and a lot of times they can do it quicker than the NFIP. But again, if you're doing this for a mortgage, you know, really talk to your insurance agent about the advantages and disadvantages of both. I think that's going to be key to you making a proper decision for you and your family and your home, because you know, knowing all the facts will definitely help you make the right decision. It's not affordable. Private flood insurance is not affordable. It is affordable in most cases. In almost every case, it's at least 50% cheaper than NFIP, especially now where rates are climbing. Again, lowering flood insurance, some steps that you guys can take as a resident and a homeowner. Send your documents in for review. Send them in to Davenport at Yourfloodrisk.com. You'll receive a free flood insurance report, and then you just review it with your insurance agent and then see how much money you can save. And a little saying here, remember, even if you live outside the flood zone, you're not immune to flooding. Homeowners insurance does not provide coverage for flooding. This goes for water main breaks too. If you're in an area that has older water mains, definitely recommend flood insurance because you know, typically homeowners insurance does not cover flooding from that water main. Floods are an act of God, but flood losses are largely acts of man, and that's from Gilbert White. That's a pretty accurate quote. So to get started, elevation certificate, I would recommend calling like I said, a licensed professional land surveyor and get that elevation certificate scheduled. And then we'll need your current flood insurance policy. Send it in to Davenport@Yourfloodrisk.com, or you can call us at this number, and we're happy to help. I'm just to the north of you. I'm more than happy if you guys wanted to call me and have me come down and do a site visit. I am happy to do that. I appreciate you guys' time, and I'll send it back on over to Megan.
Okay. Hi, this is Megan Overton. I'm one of the floodplain managers along with Laura Berkeley with the City of Davenport. So the Community Rating System, or CRS program, is a voluntary program that reduces flood insurance premiums through preparedness and resiliency actions. CRS rewards communities for going above and beyond the standard NFIP requirements for their community. The City of Davenport has participated in CRS since 1995, and as Brian mentioned, is currently a Class 7, which equals a 15% discount on flood insurance policies. Davenport's CRS activities include educational outreach like the Flood Resiliency Series and open space preservation. And if you'd like to know more about the CRS program, you can contact any of the floodplain staff at flood@davenportiowa.com or 563-326-7765. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Nevada.
If anybody has any questions at this time, please enter those into the chat function. You'll also see in that chat that we put contact information and website information in there for you, so you can check that out right now as well. If you are attending by phone, if you would email us any questions that you have at flood@davenportiowa.com, as soon as we get those in our email, we will start working to respond to you. It looks like we have a question. Is there a way to find past elevation certificates?
So past elevation certificates, if we have one on file, we would be happy to look it up and see If we do, we have them from previous projects if they were required with a floodplain development permit, and you can contact the flood elevation, the flood email, or give us a call for that.
Next question, how much does Yourfloodrisk.com charge to assess our premium?
There is no cost to that. It's complimentary, and there's no obligation at all.
Third question, can you elaborate on the difference between what pre-firm and post-firm mean?
You want me to take that, or you can?
That's fine.
Okay, so pre-firm is a home. It's pre-flood insurance rate map, and it's built before the flood insurance rate map was released by the city. And post-firm is your new construction or post-flood insurance rate map. So it'd be like your newer homes, and those are obviously should be built to code. And but yeah, so pre-firm is before the flood insurance rate map was released. Post-firm is after the flood insurance rate map is released.
We have another question about recommending a surveyor.
I would recommend. I'm not going to recommend anybody, but I would recommend it to you guys. There's all kinds of surveyors around. I guess places like Excel, Beanstalk Kim. I'm not sure if the city would have a list of surveyors in their portfolio.
Yeah, we can't recommend one either, but some of the same companies that Brian just listed off, other people have used in the past. So we can always, if you contact us, we can let you know of licensed land surveyors others have used.
Okay, we'll give it another minute or two for any other questions to come in. Oh, we have a few more. How much is a survey?
I'm not sure if Brian has any ideas. I think I've seen anywhere from, and it's going to depend on your property. I've seen people have let us know from anywhere from like $500 to $1,500, I think is a typical range.
Yep.
But again, I think it's going to depend on the property and the surveying company.
Absolutely.
Which department to contact about existing elevation certificates that may be on file?
You can contact the floodplain staff, so you can contact that flood@davenportiowa.com email, or you can give us a call at 563-326-7765, and we would be able to help you.
After flood risk evaluation, what's the process for getting a premium reduction if you're insured through Nfip?
We'll send you back a report on what you would need to do to bring that home into compliance. And like I said, it could be something simple. It could be something more costly. But we'll let you know that through a nice, easy report for you guys to read. And it's like I said, it could be a number of things from fill, elevation, flood openings, and you'll know that right away because we'll show you what you should be paying after mitigation too. So we'll show you kind of the return on investment, if you will.
Okay, we'll give it another minute for any further questions. Okay, we'll go ahead and wrap up for tonight. You can view this recording on our website at www.davenportiowa.com. Sorry, we have /flood study to look for information about the flood study. To view this video, you're going to go to our www.beprepareddavenport.com, and that's